Senator Cramer, you came early and you stayed late, and we're grateful for your patience. Thank you. You're now recognized.
Well, it's important stuff. So I like to satisfy my curiosity by listening to the answers of the witnesses to other people's questions. Come to find out, they're often the same questions I have. So it works pretty well. So I'm going to make some observations, first of all, some of the things that were said, and then maybe drill down a little deeper or get further clarification. Mr. Bauer, you said something interesting in your opening statement that I think is worth repeating, and I'll repeat them in my words, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But you referenced how important this 5-year new bill was compared to the alternative, which would have been a 1-year flatlined extension of status quo. Particularly in this inflationary time, I think it's an important point. Because really that would have exacerbated inflation. And I think we don't talk enough about the anti-inflationary impacts of infrastructure. Because everyone talks about the supply side of the economy, they talk about the demand side of the economy, but they talk about it in the context of the Federal Reserve. They talk about it in the context of money, the supply of money, to shrink the demand for the products. And of course, one of the ways they do that is add to the cost of money, right? So it's all anti what you're doing. It actually enhances the cost of things. And I'm not saying the Federal Reserve shouldn't do that. I'm on the banking committee, and I'm glad they're doing that. I wish they would have started it sooner and been more modest about it instead of so dramatic. That said, I think you raise a point that we should talk more about, and that is that infrastructure is anti-inflationary, particularly when the real challenge we have is while the demand grew because there was a bunch of free money thrown out into the marketplace, the supply chain got broken. And you guys fix supply chains. You move commerce. It's so important. So thank you, first of all, for reminding us of that. I wouldn't mind a little more maybe detail if anybody has it. And I'm going to comment on some of the things that have been said specific to how big the bill is and how hard it's been to sort of turn the ship. We were rather prescriptive, I think, in the legislation with the one federal decision. That was a prescription to the complications. It was designed to simplify the environmental process, not to further complicate it. And so I'm not looking at you all as as part of the blame. I'm saying the administration, in many cases, in implementing this law, they have tried to add complication by considering things that we specifically excluded. That's what the Memorandum 16 was all about. Adding, the administration's priorities into the guidance and whatever other things they can add it to. And so, I guess in this inflationary time, when you're trying to fix inflation by fixing the supply chain, maybe each of you could talk just a little bit about the cost of that. You're already dealing with inflation. You're dealing with a higher cost of borrowing money, buying equipment as well as materials. Labor certainly is a stress point. How about the cost of complicating the regulatory side of it? What could we do better? Maybe I'll start with you. Yeah, maybe Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
Sure.
By the way, the Gary Johnson that was the governor of New Mexico is from Minot, North Dakota.
Oh.
And he ran for president as a libertarian. You might recall he was a Republican governor who ran for president. Anyway, we know you're not him.
Sure. So,
Thank you.
yeah, the inflation has driven the cost up of construction drastically. I checked with a large concrete supplier in Southern California yesterday. In the last 2.5 years, the price of cement, which is the primary or the most important ingredient going into concrete, has gone up 30 to 40% in 2.5 years. Liquid asphalt, which is the binder that we use to make the asphalt that we pave the roads with, in the last 2 years has gone up 76%. So if we squelch the supply of cement and asphalt oil, it's going to continue to drive the price up. Mm-hmm. On the permitting side, the longer it takes to permit something, the more regulations you have to go through, the longer the process, that obviously drives the price up. I was at a conference in Dallas a couple of weeks ago. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers regional director said they've got projects that they're putting out to bid, a lot of Department of Defense contracts that are not being bid upon because they don't have the ability to give the contractors adjustments on material pricing on long jobs. So contractors like Granite are saying, we can't do that. It's too much risk. So we've got to get inflation down. The only way I know to do that is to increase supply, increase the ability of people to get things done quickly and easily.
Do I get to cheat just a little bit?
Just a little bit.
Okay. Either any of the other witnesses that want to add on to that, Mr. Bauer, you I think brought it up originally.
Yeah, look, Mr. Johnson had a great answer, and the theme of your question is the time value of money.
The time value of
And
money.
it's just, the longer things take, the more they're going to cost. And you're right, that doesn't get considered enough, and it's very hard to create policy to capture the time value of money. But what they have described as to what their businesses have experienced in the last couple of years, just it puts a blast rocket on what the typical time value of money calculations. So everything costs more. And I wish I would have said this when Senator Capito was asking me previously about one federal decision. And, again, it's hard to legislate this, but the fact remains that without a commitment on the part of the federal agencies, state agencies to try to do this, your policies are always going to miss the mark. And there has to be a commitment on the part of, certainly our industry, but project owners and administrators to that we want to try to capture value and get projects out as soon as possible. And, again, you have a lot more skill than I do in this area, and if you know how to legislate it, great. But, that commitment is a huge component of success no matter what we're talking about.
You are right on point. It's my greatest frustration of this place. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.